Alright folks, I think it's time we talk about one of the most important figures in all of history. The man who has been a part of South Park since the beginning. You know who I'm talking about. Put your hands together for...
Jesus Christ! Hi.
Jesus has had a genuinely long journey in South Park history. A major part of the 2 shorts that allowed South Park to be made at all, his initial role on the series was as a humble local TV talk show host. But over the years, through different adventures and even some scandals, Jesus has become a hero to the residents of South Park many times over in countless different ways. I've already covered Satan here on the channel, so I think it's time we take a look at the other side and dive into the life of Jesus according to South Park. But first, a word from today's video sponsor. Quick question, what game is completely free to play and has over 80 million downloads? Raid! What game has over 650 unique champions with billions of ways to customize them? Raid! What game has endless content with new champions and updates every single month? Raid, raid, raid! Okay, quick game, which 4 champions would you want to invite to dinner? Here are mine. Judge? Raid. Ursine Ironhide? Raid. Sissia Flametongue? Raid. Gurgle the Ogre? Raid, raid, raid. But that's not all. Raid Shadow Legends' 4th anniversary is finally here, and there is a ton to get excited about. I'm talking dedicated offers, free gifts, promo codes, events, and a brand new fusion event where you guys can get your hands on an anniversary-themed legendary champion. I mean, there is no better time to start playing Raid. Use my link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses. We are talking an epic champion, Kellen the Shrike, and tons of other useful stuff. And since it's Raid's birthday, there are a bunch of free birthday gifts for all new and existing players. Once you're in game, after clicking on the links, just enter promo code 4YearsRaid to get your hands on 4 legendary skill tomes plus other useful stuff. It's simple, so start playing Raid today. Raid.
Now back to Jesus and Pals on South Park Public Access.
Jesus spent his earliest days in South Park hosting Jesus and Pals, a daytime talk show for local broadcast. The series gave Jesus direct access to the citizens so they could ask for advice, allowing Jesus to then convey his ideas to everyone in the local area. Like when Stan calls in to ask about homosexuality.
So I'd like to state once and for all my true opinion. You see,
That's all the time we've left for Jesus and Pals.
Or when Stan calls in to ask about the morality of assisted suicide.
my son,
Yes?
I'm not touching that with a 60-foot pole.
Early on, Jesus is shown to have some omniscient powers, though he doesn't seem to display them all of the time.
This is Martin.
Martin from Aspen Park, yes, I know.
How the hell'd you know that?
Well, maybe because I'm the son of God, Brainiac. Now, do you have a question?
But he didn't just host a TV show in South Park, he also lived there. Though sadly, the community didn't always show their support for him in the ways that they should have.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me.
One of the worst instances of South Park failing to show up in support of Jesus was during a battle against evil itself. After Damien, the son of Satan, moves to South Park, he relays to Jesus that he and Satan must fight.
Let the final battle between good and evil be fought right here in South Park.
This battle, of course, takes place in the form of a pay-per-view boxing match. And unfortunately, once the entire town sees how massive and jacked Satan is, literally everyone places bets on Satan to win the match. Jesus confronts everyone in town at the bar, and nobody budges on their decision to support Satan in the fight. Not even Father Maxie. The only ones who believe in Jesus are the children.
Kids, you believe I can beat Satan, right?
Sure, dude, you're the son of God.
But even after trying to train with Chef, Jesus' fight with Satan does not go great. He refuses to fight back, and even Satan's lightest punches are too much for Jesus to handle.
My father forsake me, the town forsake me. I'm completely forsook.
In the end, though, Jesus does end up winning the fight. However, only because Satan threw the fight. It was all a scam. Satan was the only one who bet on Jesus, and he collected the entire town's wagers. Perhaps a bittersweet vindication for Jesus that the town should have supported him. But it seems that Jesus' insecurities from these incidents would follow him into his talk show, Jesus and Pals. When a new hunting series starring Jimbo and Ned starts to eat into Jesus and Pals ratings, Jesus allows a TV producer to entirely change their show simply to try and earn higher ratings. They initially try bringing on bigger guests, like TV's Gilligan. But when these changes don't help, the TV producer continues to pressure Jesus into changing the show, even though he firmly claims he doesn't really want that. Seeking the approval of his audience and the people of South Park leads Jesus to betray his own judgment and his own sense of self, and his show turns into a Jerry Springer-type drama factory.
She needs to kick him to the curb, baby. Kick who to the curb?
Her no good husband!
The producer continues to manipulate the show, even convincing guests to lie about issues as serious as drug addiction and molestation. This turns the show into an absolute bloodbath of a disaster, leading Jesus to finally put his foot down.
Shut the f up! Jesus, what is wrong with you people?
Realizing the level of manipulation his producer had wrought, Jesus reverts his series back to the old format and sends her straight to hell. But Jesus' insecurity arc comes to a pretty substantial close at the turn of the century in the season 3 episode, Are You There, God? It's Me, Jesus. After being largely ignored by much of the population, the impending new year into the year 2000 raises people's expectations that something huge and biblical might happen when the new year strikes.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of people have come from all over the world seeking Jesus here at his house in South Park.
After feeling forsaken by the people for so long, Jesus finally finds himself in a situation where they're returning to him for guidance into the new millennium. However, he finds that the people aren't interested in his usual shtick.
Believe in me and ye shall find peace.
Yeah. We've heard that crap for about 2,000 years now. We want to hear something new.
But the people's expectations are pretty massive. They want to see God himself. Jesus' long-standing insecurities about his following lead him to ask his father for help, as he doesn't want to squander his second chance at popularity.
I'm kind of making a comeback.
Yea, like John Travolta before you, you are experiencing a second revival.
However, the problem here is that Jesus wasn't actually asking his father to make an appearance for the people's sake. He's doing it because this is his chance to be popular again.
Be ye careful of pride, Jesus.
God refuses to come down to meet the people, but Jesus still tries his best to maintain this popularity by putting on a New Year's concert in Las Vegas with Rod Stewart headlining. However, despite putting on this big concert, the people still expect that God will show up.
How about you, ma'am? Do you think God is going to show up tomorrow night?
Of course he is. This is Jesus we're talking about. He wouldn't let us down.
Oh no.
Jesus repeatedly asked God to solve his problem for him, to come and talk to the people so that Jesus could stay on their good side. And when he doesn't show up, the crowd turns on him again.
This is the worst New Year's ever. Thanks a lot, Jesus.
Let's get him!
But luckily, by giving some of his own advice to Stan, who was lamenting that God wouldn't answer his own prayers and give him what he wanted, Jesus comes to the realization that living is about overcoming problems. Without obstacles, there wouldn't really be any point to living. And Jesus realizes his own follies in his judgment.
I had to learn all this on my own. I was overcome with my new popularity and I let pride get in the way of good judgment.
This is actually a pretty perfect distillation of Jesus' entire arc in this first chunk of South Park. Jesus too often let his insecurities about his popularity cloud his judgment. It led him to extreme anger towards the citizens of South Park when they wouldn't support him in the fight against Satan, and even caused him to basically give up in that fight instead of actually try to tough out the match. Trying to gain more popularity in his TV ratings led him to let a slimy TV producer change his talk show into something despicable that tears people apart, instead of a show that helps people with advice to live by. And now, by fearing the loss of his newfound popularity, he overpromised and underdelivered to the people of South Park on New Year's into the new millennium. And upon Jesus' revelation, God came down to show himself to the people of Earth.
What did you expect me to look like, my son?
Jesus wouldn't struggle with his image in the eyes of the people for quite a while after this, but he would shortly after enter a more dangerous phase of his life.
Lock and load. We're going in.
Though Jesus would continue his TV series for a time after this, after season 4, we never see the set of Jesus and Pals again. In fact, he seemingly moved on to an entirely new lifestyle with a group of great friends. Superheroism. When David Blaine starts to indoctrinate the kids and a bunch of other folks into his Blaintology religion, Stan goes to Jesus to ask for help. Unfortunately, he also learns that Jesus' miracles were often not particularly impressive.
Behold, here you can see ordinary water. Clear, clean. Okay, now turn around.
But despite this, Jesus still challenges David Blaine. However, his old school fish and bread related miracles were no match for Blaine's actual telekinesis. In order to stop David Blaine's reign of terror, Jesus reveals that he belongs to a group of superheroes consisting of all of the world's most important religious figures, the super best friends: Buddha, Mohammed, Krishna, Joseph Smith, Lao Tzu, and Seaman.
Seaman. That's what I said. Seaman.
But only together were the super best friends able to team up and use their powers combined to stop David Blaine and his now living giant statue of Abraham Lincoln. Krishna transforms into a beaver to cut down wood, Jesus uses his super carpentry on the wood to build a mold, Joseph Smith pours concrete that semen mixes with water, Muhammad uses his fire powers to harden the statue, and Lao Tzu becomes one with the statue to bring it to life, creating a giant John Wilkes Booth statue to stop the Abraham Lincoln statue once and for all. Once Jesus got over his pride, he started working together with others better, even those with different beliefs than him. And together, through their super best friendship, they're able to make the world a better place. In fact, I would argue that this entire era of Jesus' life was very focused on friendship. One of Jesus' oldest friends is Santa Claus. The pair even had a musical lounge act singing Christmas duets together.
Who wouldn't go? Ho, 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 who wouldn't go?
This friendship clearly meant a lot to Jesus. He even had a framed photo of himself and Santa in his house in South Park. So obviously, when disaster struck and Santa's sleigh was shot down over Iraq, Jesus was immediately willing to jump into action and help his best friend.
We need a little Christmas miracle.
I will say, this part of Jesus' life is definitely filled with a lot more murder than the other parts. In order to save Santa from being tortured by terrorists, he really does do a whole lot of killing. Just brutal killing. Jesus and the boys manage to get in, heal Santa's legs, and stage an escape. Unfortunately, Jesus takes a shotgun to the back before they can get out.
Santa?
I'm here, Jesus.
Don't ever let them take away our Christmas spirit.
Every Christmas hereafter was celebrated in honor of Jesus and his heroic sacrifice. And that is the true story of how Jesus Christ died to save his best friend, Santa Claus. After Jesus' death in Iraq, the church began to fall into ruin. The president of the American Catholic League, Bill Donahue, garnered more control over the church and even managed to begin to manipulate the Pope himself and his decision-making. A group called the Hair Club for Men guarded a secret historic truth, that the first Pope, St. Peter, was actually a rabbit.
Proof is everywhere. Look at the Pope's hat. It makes no sense, except that it was originally designed for a rabbit.
This is why the Easter Bunny is a part of the Easter tradition. Randy Marsh, his son Stan, and Stan's friend Kyle tried to help protect Snowball, the direct descendant of St. Peter and heir to the papacy. Heir to the papacy. Obviously, the church didn't want this secret to get out and worked to destroy the Hair Club for Men and kill Snowball. This is when, after 5 years, Jesus finally returned.
Jesus!
Jesus resurrected and returned to set the church straight and to put Bill Donahue and the Pope in their place.
This is exactly why I put a rabbit in charge of the church, Benedictus. Because men are so easily led astray.
Despite this, Bill Donahue sentences Jesus to death and has everybody arrested, appointing himself the new Pope. But Jesus wasn't just going to give up. In order to escape his prison cell, he asks Kyle to kill him, and then uses his power of resurrection to return once again to stop Pope Bill Donahue.
I'm removing you from your position.
After his heroic sacrifice and a 5-year absence, Jesus returned to help his people and show them the true meaning of Easter, and of course, reappoint the true Pope to tell people how they should run their lives.
It isn't saying anything.
Yes, just as Jesus intended it.
Stan actually would see Jesus again not long after this. However, this version of Jesus is a bit of an anomaly. Though we know that in South Park Jesus is canonically real, I mean he's got a house and everything, Stan and Butters meet Jesus in a place called Imagination Land, a world filled with imaginary made-up beings. Though it isn't clear if this is the same Jesus as in the real world, he sits on the Council of Nine and displays a lot of the same heroic tendencies that we've come to know Jesus for. After his return to Earth, Jesus generally readapted to aspects of his previous life. He rejoined the super best friends, and though Muhammad was no longer able to make public appearances, they still managed to join forces and stop Mecha Streisand. Jesus' leadership and super carpentry are vital in his work with the super best friends, though he did often chastise Buddha for doing too much cocaine, despite his own alleged internet porn addiction.
Buddha, will you lay off that stuff already? It's getting to be a problem.
Jesus even took a bit more of an aggressive and proactive approach to teaching people lessons. After this slimy movie producer makes an anti-bullying campaign simply as a means to sell and promote a film about bullying, Jesus does a little bullying of his own.
My child, have you ever heard of a place called hell? It's eternal fire and it's gonna hurt real bad.
But Jesus eventually finds himself in a pretty major scandal, one that turns the entire town and world against him once again. When it's revealed that Jesus was actually using human growth hormone during his crucifixion, people stopped believing in him and his abilities.
Jesus did not suffer for our sins. He was in fact very high.
We actually see Jesus fall back into one of his old insecurities from the early days of South Park. His good name being soiled sends him spiraling, and rather than just actually help people, he starts to position himself to look like he's doing good things, just so that he can be redeemed in the eyes of the people. Not unlike the dilemma we saw back in Are You There, God? It's Me, Jesus. But this time, it's at a time where people are seeking causes that they want to outwardly show support for so that they can look like better people by wearing these little bracelets. And when a man takes advantage of this and dupes South Park out of their money, Jesus takes some more HGH and gets revenge on him, becoming the people's champion once again.
And causes shouldn't be worn on our wrists with a sneer. Let's keep our causes where they belong, which is right here.
The last time we see Jesus in South Park was at what better time but Christmas, the holiday meant to honor his heroic sacrifice in Iraq. After Santa bans alcohol sales in South Park to stop the residents from drunk driving, Randy starts selling everyone cocaine instead. This obviously infuriates Santa, who steals all of the cocaine from everyone's houses and tries to rid South Park of the drug. Randy pursues him and after some convincing, gets Santa to try his Tegrity cocaine. But after Santa comes around on Tegrity cocaine, Jesus arrives to put a stop to them. We already know Jesus has an issue with coke, but they also convince Jesus to give it a try.
Okay, I get it. It's really clean.
Amazingly, Jesus shows a power here we've never seen before, telekinesis, as he releases the cocaine into the atmosphere, creating a fresh, clean snowfall onto the town of South Park.
Does this mean you all have the Christmas spirit again?
You're darn tootin' we do.
I want you all to think back to Jesus' final words to Santa Claus after his heroic sacrifice in Iraq.
Don't ever let them take away our Christmas spirit.
How perfectly fitting is it for Jesus and Santa to once again meet here on Christmas and return Christmas spirit to the people, fulfilling their promise to one another. Throughout the history of South Park, Jesus has had his ups and downs. Though he is the Son of God, a man who can perform miracles, a master of carpentry, has occasional telekinetic powers, and of course, the ability to resurrect from the grave, he went through his own trials and tribulations, struggling with insecurities about his popularity, being at the center of scandals, teaming up with some of his best friends to stop evil, sacrificing himself for his very best friend, and resurrecting and returning to Earth to put a rabbit in charge of the church. Jesus' life is an amazing one. It's no wonder that so many people follow him.
Our Savior!
The voices sing his praises on this holy day. He is risen.
Johnny! Two Cellos!